All right, so what we're looking at today is a couple of review things and then stuff that'll impact or deal with elasticity eventually, but combining supply, demand, effective attacks with consumer surplus, producer surplus, and deadweight loss. So first off, just remember, when we're looking at a downward sloping demand curve, it does that generally for two reasons: the income effect and the substitution effect. The idea of the income effect is as price goes down, you have more money in your pocket, and so as long as it's a normal good, you're more willing and able to purchase more. Substitution effect, essentially, as price goes down, you'll substitute away from other goods and purchase that one. Remember, for it's a normal good, both the income effect and substitution effect work together. For an inferior good, the substitution effect actually outweighs the income effect. Because remember, for an inferior good, as income goes up, you're less likely to purchase it. Demand actually goes down, but it still is a downward sloping curve eventually for that particular product. For a Giffen good though, for a Giffen good, the income effect actually outweighs the substitution effect. As you have more income in your pocket, it outweighs the substitution effect. Giffen good is so extremely inferior that the income effect actually outweighs the substitution effect. And all that means is it's so inferior that the idea is that as income goes up, you purchase so much less of it that you would not face a downward sloping demand curve. But in general, downward sloping demand curve happens because of the income effect and the substitution effect. Some new terms: excise tax, the tax on sales. That's a type we'll mostly diagram. Three other terms you'll hear, especially in the United States, two of them of which there's a progressive tax. Progressive tax, as it says here, rises more than in proportion to your income. So most of the income tax that you might hear you or your family paying, the more money you make, the higher percent your tax rate is. That's progressive tax. Proportional tax rises in proportion almost exactly with your income. As your income rises by a specific percent, you end up paying the same percent overall. And what that means is probably easier to think of it in terms of a regressive tax. That rises less than in proportion to your income, right? So one way to think about it is if you're always paying a 10% tax on goods, like a sales tax is roughly that. If you make a lot of money, right, as your wealth and your income go up, you're still paying this small percent, 10% or whatever on the top of the price of the good, as opposed to if you don't make much money, you still pay that. And so regressive means it is impacting your overall income more if you make less money. Lump sum tax, we don't really see this too terribly much that I can think of in the United States, but it's a fixed amount the government decides that all taxpayers should pay. Oftentimes you see it the reverse. Every now and then you get a lump sum, what's called subsidy from the government, but rarely just a specific amount taxed by the government. Combining taxes with a concept we've been learning about recently, deadweight loss. The deadweight loss from a tax is loss of community surplus overall minus the tax revenue, because the tax revenue still goes to our overall society. Nobody loses it completely. And so how do you look at that? You look at that by going with your supply curve and your demand curve. And remember, this area in purple here is your consumer surplus, the area above price, below the demand curve. Producer surplus, the area below price and above the supply curve. This is regular. When you have a situation where the supply curve shifts left for the tax, we have a new equilibrium point. Comes over here, price of the tax. You can say hello to my daughter, I think was in the film. This new equilibrium point creates a new quantity. Well, what we see here, this area that's in red, tax revenue is simply the amount of the tax, which is the vertical distance between the supply line, times the amount that is purchased. So if we were to draw this down, the quantity with the tax purchased is there. So this area in red here is the area of the tax revenue. So what does that look like when we're trying to figure out what your loss to society is from a tax? If we come all the way over here, you'll see I've taken out the supply curve from the tax, but essentially it's right there. Just makes it a little bit easier to see. There's our equilibrium point, same one that's right there. Well, we used to have this whole area in purple. Now we just have, because this is the price, now we just have this small area in purple, so that's consumer surplus. The area below price and above the supply curve would normally be producer surplus, but this whole area in red, as you saw here, is tax revenue. So producer surplus is just the area in green. So our deadweight loss, we'll see is this area in blue, but our deadweight loss is loss of community surplus but then you either add back into, okay, or in this case, if you're taking away what you've lost, you have to take out the tax revenue. So this area still comes to society. What we've lost overall is this area in blue, and that's the deadweight loss overall from the tax to society, beyond any differences in price, beyond any differences in whether or not we think it's a good tax or a bad tax. The deadweight loss is surplus loss to society. Once again, thank you for listening. I hope overall you keep your expectations low, but your opportunity cost high.